The Year of Vocation has taken a while to come about. It wasn't planned as such out of nowhere. It came from a growing awareness that, on the one hand, there wasn't the same number of people coming forward for the specific vocations of marriage and ordained ministry in the church. And then a growing awareness also that the idea of being called by God to anything seems to jar with the language of our modern culture, where I do all the choosing. So there was that sense of, how do we begin to get this basic catechesis that's at the core of the gospel across on a national level? The sense that we are called into life, and then we are called to live that life to the full, but to live that life to the full in the context of our being creatures of God, being members of the people of God, and being part of a missionary church that is called to spread the good news. So it was something that matured over a period of time, and the purpose was to put that idea of being called by God in front of everyone. My life finds its meaning in the context of my divine vocation. I am called by name by God. I am known by name. The hairs on my head are numbered. And we had a strapline, something like, choose to be chosen. So that vocation wasn't just a sense of, how do I find a job in the church? But how do I discover, actually, through prayer, through scripture, how do I discover through the faith community that I'm part of, how do I discover what I am called to be as a member of that community? Not just what's my call in some sort of abstract bubble sense, but in the context of my responsibilities within church and to the world. No, the Year of Vocation seemed to come, first of all, the idea of what can we do about vocations came from vocations directors, both religious and diocesan. But then we began to talk to other people and to broaden out the project. And then when someone suggested to us, could we have a Year of Vocations, or Year of Vocation, rather than just one Vocations Day in May or April each year, the idea began to gather ground, and it was a small seed that was sown that really came at the right time, and I think it began to grow and expand, and we discovered a lot of enthusiasm on the part of many people. So I think it really has been a product that came from the ground up rather than something decided as part of a grandiose plan from the top down, and it really has been driven by members of that committee. I think Ireland has been experiencing over this past number of decades exactly what's been the case in the States, in continental European countries, that are a rapidly secularizing society. The notion of committing yourself for life to anything, be it marriage, relationships, be it job, or be it within the life of the faith community, really seems unusual. Now, there's been a huge drop, as everyone knows, within Ireland and in many other countries. Certainly there's been a real levelling off in this past number of years, and signs that a smaller but consistent number of people are still struggling with that idea. What am I called to be? What value does my life have? And I think our job is partly to encourage that question to be asked, and partly also to put the options in front of people so that they can really discover through the range of vocations within the church what theirs might be. But I think even more importantly, we're keeping that big picture in mind as well, that so many people find their lives without meaning. Suicide is a real phenomenon. It's a problem. Find a way out. We're saying your life is meaningful. Your life is of infinite value to the eternal God. Your job is not even to try and do something to please God, but simply to discover in your life what God is calling you to be, to become, and to contribute to the life of the church and the life of the world. What you can bring to the faith community and what you can bring to the salvation of the world, which is so much in need of meaningfulness. To discover the meaningfulness of each individual person's life. As Viktor Frankl said, our Western society gives people the means by which to live, but not a meaning for which to live. That vocation of God to all of us is a response to a deep human need to discover meaningfulness in our own lives. And we're hoping that this teaching, this catechesis about vocation on a national basis throughout Ireland for this year will actually help not just vocations within the church, but also help to provide a sense in our own culture that human life is precious from the cradle to the grave. So I think we're providing a public service rather than just trying to do a recruitment run for more public vocations in the church. Well, I think there's this broad sense that the call of God to all of us is not something that's lived in a small ecclesiastical corner that's only of interest to a few people, but actually discovering that our life has value, is of infinite value, is beautiful in itself, and is beautiful in the context of the vocations of everyone else. That's a contribution to a stable society. I think we're also hoping that people will be able to recognize marriage as an important vocation, something that contributes to the welfare not just of the couple, but also of their children and to the communities in which they live. And that, yes, there will be people who'll say, I want to commit my life full-time to the spreading of the gospel, whether as an ordained person, consecrated person, or as a lay person. But at least that sense of idealism and enthusiasm that's in so many young people can be tapped into. So I think we're looking for a raising of the tide that will lift all boats across the church in Ireland, rather than just saying we must get more people into the ordained ministry. That would be a very limited sense, because clergy, religious, are part of the people of God, not separate from it in some way. And it's a healthy faith community that will help everyone within that, ordained, consecrated, lay, married, single, whatever, to discover the beauty of their own life, the value of their own life, and the unique contribution that they can make. So we're not looking for just figures at the end of the year. We're looking for a much broader catechesis and a raising of that tide of hope for the future. First of all, I think prayer is vital for anyone who wants their faith to grow. If we are going to discover the meaningfulness of Scripture, if we're going to discover what it's like to pray with people, we need to be people of prayer. That call to holiness for all faith communities to be schools of prayer was key to Pope John Paul II's document at the beginning of the new millennium, that we must be focusing on promoting holiness. Therefore, when we are a people of prayer, that provides a context for each person to be open to the promptings of the Spirit, to discover their own vocation. It provides a context where people can gather to say, we want to pray for young people to discover the vision and the enthusiasm of the apostles, of the early church, to desire to follow Christ. It's really only within a prayerful community, only within a community that's seeking to understand, to know, to exemplify, to model God's will and God's dream for the world. It's really only there's any chance of specific vocations being rooted rather than just floating around in some sort of esoteric bubble. So I think that call to holiness and to prayer is at the core of everything that we do, and specifically about finding the meaningfulness of vocation. I think traditionally we always would have said, go and talk to a priest, go and talk to a religious sister, and you can, but I think there are so many other ways of accessing the information. You'll certainly find the traditional things of Catholic newspapers with loads of contact points within the advertisement pages there, but electronically, of course, which is the way that young people now access so much information. There's the yearofvocation.ie is one website specifically for this year. There's catholicbishops.ie, which is the website for the Episcopal Conference, the Irish Bishops' Conference, and that can lead on to all sorts of other possible contacts, whether we're looking for diocesan priesthood, whether there are those who are looking for monastic life or religious life or whatever, or looking for information on marriage preparation, all those things. I think there's loads of information available there, and perhaps Googling those websites, simply going on to them straight away, is the ideal thing to do. There's lots of contacts there, and if you want to inquire, people will be glad to accompany you whenever you make a personal contact as well.